Hello YouTube friends, Ochart here, and I'm happy to report that finally I think I understand this sump system. I'm the kind of guy that just jumps in with both feet and then figures it out, and I want to thank all of you for all the input. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about. First of all, I want to start with a big shout out to Tony Emansel. Tony Emansel was kind enough to explain to me some of the mechanics of how the water moves around in a sump, and that made a huge difference because I finally get it. I finally get the correct way to fill a sump, something that my friend Dennis Rudell alluded to, but I didn't really completely understand. Meanwhile, the sump is filled up, as you can see here, with the water level a few inches above the pump. And so what that means is this is as high as the water can possibly get in the system. If I had a complete pump failure, this is as high as the water can get, assuming there isn't a back siphon, which I'll be covering later on in this video. Okay, so let's go ahead and fire it up. So now the water is flowing, the pump is pumping, and as it moves water into the tank, that water is overflowing into here. So now with me understanding how that system works, it becomes obvious that this valve here, even though it has been a bit convenient when I wanted to do a little messing around with the media, but this valve is really not even necessary once you have the water level calibrated correctly. You will notice that this valve is now a valve that's a heavier duty valve with a double union, and a little bit better than the one you see here I had installed previously. And now that I really understand the mechanics of how the water flow in the sump works, and for that I thank those who took the time to explain it to me and to field my questions. I thank all of those folks who did that and who helped me understand how the water flow works and how there really isn't a need to be afraid of a flood when it's set up correctly. Another change that you're going to notice is that I've added pieces of acrylic to the top of the tank. This is helping to offset some of the evaporation that sumps are notorious for. So I'm holding in the water a bit better. It's also quieted things down. And so you'll see these pieces were cut not just on the top, but also on the chambers down below. And they are helping in several ways. And you can see here, there's a piece of acrylic over the center chamber. I've also added media. You can see here, I took your advice on that point as well. And I added additional bioballs. And these bioballs have, starting from the bottom there with the BioHome Ultimate, and then of course some of the sponge-filled bioballs and the bioballs that I just acquired. You can see a bag of them here. Pretty large amount, and I could probably even add an additional one and I'd still have the space. That's the advantages of the sump. I probably have 10 times the amount of media in here that I could have in an FX6. But it is much quieter with the additional media, and I thank you to those who made that recommendation. I've also added plants. The center section of the sump now has plants planted in the gravel that was in the center section. I love the impact of plants. They add oxygen, they reduce nitrates. So I love having plants as part of my system. I couldn't have them in the tank before because the cichlids were destroying them. Those plants, together with this algae scrubber, are going to do a great job at the controlling nitrates. This algae scrubber, this HOG 1 unit you can see here, has developed much faster than the other algae scrubber that I have on the 100. It is producing some beautiful algae that is going to be working very hard for me. I will harvest this algae, by the way, and feed it to my plecos. So I have quite a few things working to help reduce the nitrates in the aquarium that these big cichlids are very good at producing. You'll also notice that I've added a block sponge that runs from the front to the back of the sump. It's covered right now with a piece of floss, but you'll see it here. This is a block sponge, a solid sponge, a solid piece that was hand cut and fits in perfectly and filters the water that goes from the bottom chamber out to the middle chamber. And so that's a new addition. Again, something that I put in based on the advice of you, the viewers, and the folks who watch my channel. Another tip you gave me was to shorten the length of the return line because it was laying a bit horizontally, and that can offset the function of the one-way valve. So I cut almost an entire foot off of this line, and now this line sits vertically, pretty much vertical, so that valve will stop shut any back siphon that can occur in the event of a pump failure. So water will not siphon back from the tank into the sump. It'll be stopped by that valve. I actually have 2 layers of protection because I've also drilled a hole just above the water line in this return area here. So in the nozzle, just above that return, right above the water line, there's a small hole about 1/16 that was drilled. That will break any siphon back to the sump because air will be introduced into the siphon. I've also added a clip-on light that was suggested by Corey at the Aquarium Co-op. This light is a Phoenix Stingray, very high quality and very good for plants. It actually will help provide the plants in that middle chamber with the necessary light spectrum. I can also stand it up and move it around to see what the heck's going on under my tank. So I'm really liking this light. A Phoenix Stingray. You can pick it up from underneath the co-op video, or you can just pick it up on Amazon. And I highly recommend this light. I've been very happy with it in the short period that I've owned it. It does a great job, and it's going to help those plants to grow and be healthy. So it's a good addition, which together with the algae scrubber are going to be helping maintain pristine and perfect water conditions for these fish. And after all, that is why we go through all this. It's all about creating the most optimum, healthiest environment for these beautiful fish. And they will reward you by looking stunning, like that John Stoney there, that Johnson eye. And I mean, look at that Taiwan reef. That fish is nuts. And what about this guy, the boss, the Venusus? Man, oh man. So you see, I do read your comments, I do pay attention, and I thank you all for the input. It was very valuable, and it has been a learning process, especially for someone like myself who just jumped in and figured it out as he goes. A lot of you have been very patient and very supportive, and I am incorporating your changes. Any more tips, please state them below. I do read them, I do appreciate them, and I thank you for tuning in and joining me on this journey of education and discovery. And thank you for your support of the channel. That is very appreciated. Be sure to comment, to sub, hit that bell so you get the subscription alerts, and do continue to provide me with your advice. I do listen, and I do appreciate it. Thank you so much.